This here is my rebuilt 2014 Nissan GT-R. And as the title suggests, it's already broken. And in a way I didn't expect, if I'm being honest. This thing almost caught fire. I know what a lot of you are thinking, Greg, this is just sensationalism. You're only saying this for YouTube. There's no way your car almost caught fire. My friends, it was pretty bad. And we cut it so close. I have no idea how we didn't encounter this while in the car. And I say we because it wasn't just myself driving, it was my 6-year-old son in the car with me. When all of this happened, I have no idea how a fire didn't start. And I'm gonna show you why I'm so surprised. Let's go ahead and pop the hood. Now, I do apologize if you can hear the wind in the microphone. I've got a dead cat on it, but sometimes that doesn't hold up. Now, I've already removed the 4 screws that hold this upper vanity cover in place. We're gonna need to take this off anyway to access what we need. But long story short, I drove it a pretty decent distance with my son. We arrived back at the house. We don't notice anything wrong. Later that night, I step back into the garage and the whole room smells like gas. I mean, to the point where I was seriously concerned about fuel leaking from, say, the tank. Maybe not in this car, maybe even the vet. I thought the vet actually was the one to blame. And I feel bad because this car honestly has been so reliable. It's got such low miles. If you haven't seen this video that we just put out on the channel, be sure to click the card somewhere up here. But this thing kind of took the brunt of my initial suspicion because it is an older car and it has sat for a majority of its life, but it turned out to not be the culprit. So what did I do? Because I couldn't find an initial obvious source of the smell, I pushed the Corvette outside overnight and I kept the garage doors closed. The next morning, I still smell fuel. It's gotta be this car or the Q7. I'm sniffing around the Q7, nothing really sticks out to me as the source over there. And then I start the GT-R, which I probably shouldn't have done in hindsight. I started it and I backed it out of the garage. That was all I did. I literally parked it right here and then I walked around the passenger side and I got a good whiff of it right through the wheel well, and I knew exactly what it was. So in this car, I do have upgraded fuel pumps. We have upgraded ID 1050X injectors, but the fuel lines running to the back of the engine are stock, and those are these guys right here. And this big one was the culprit. I started sniffing around this area and I noticed a bit of the plastic cover around this fuel line, which runs all the way down under the car and to the fuel tank, started peeling. You can see it's actually really flaky right now. It shouldn't be bulged out like that. That was because tiny amounts of fuel were squeaking by what I imagine is a partially severed O-ring in here, and started corroding this plastic, started lifting it up. Plastic, paint, I don't know what it is, but it shouldn't be doing that. And so what we're gonna need to do in this video to rectify the issue is replace this line here, just to be safe. We could probably get by with just replacing the O-ring, but I wanna replace the entire line to be on the safe side, because the last thing I want is fuel dripping down here, as it was previously, and working its way on top of either the headers or the turbos. And if fuel at any point had touched either of those, we'd have been in big trouble. And in hindsight, I have no idea how it didn't happen. I was driving rather spiritedly. My son loves launch mode. We've done launch mode in this car since fixing it, probably like 8 or 9 times now. And usually we'll just do it right outside the neighborhood. And I mean, we did one right before we parked it in the garage. So I imagine it had to have been at least partially leaking after that last launch. How it didn't catch fire, how fuel didn't touch the turbo or the downpipe or anything back there, I'll never know. Seriously, I feel like it was a miracle. And I know it looks pretty dry now. That's of course what we want before we start working on things, but judging by how strong the fuel smell was the night that I noticed it in the garage, and by how much fuel was seeping out of that connection after only starting the car for about 10 or 15 seconds and backing it out onto the driveway, whew, it could have been so much worse. And speaking of so much worse, I can tell you from experience there's nothing worse than being stranded on the side of a highway with either a flat tire or a dead battery. Apart from the obvious fire and accident, popping a tire is no laughing matter, and driving with a flat could be extremely dangerous. And that's why it always helps to have something like this handy. This is Wolfbox's Megavolt 24 Air, and it's a 2-in-1 jump starter and air compressor. It's a compact, portable, all-in-one emergency tool for virtually any vehicle, delivering up to 4,000
amps to start any vehicle dozens of times on a single charge. That charge can also be used to inflate tires, by the way, delivering up to 160 psi at around 45 liters per minute to get you up and running as quickly as possible. There's also a built-in flashlight, handy carrying case, and power bank capabilities for charging your phone or tablet with ease. I've used this very unit, the Megavolt 24 Air, numerous times on this channel. It comes in super handy, and I don't leave my house without one. You won't miss it until you need it, and so I highly recommend one for your vehicle as well. Be sure to check it out and more from Wolfbox via the sponsor link below.
So in this box, I have a replacement OEM fuel rail assembly. Now, it's got way more than I need in it. I'm just gonna strip the, I believe it's called the damper line, and it's the one on the passenger side. I'm gonna replace that. I'm assuming it still has the O-ring in it. And yes, you could probably beat me up in the comments for buying a used part, but anything new was coming from Japan. Or if I wanted to buy it from Z1 Motorsports, over $300 for just a hose, which I guess that's the GT-R tax, but I'm not about to spend $300+ on a rubber hose. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I figured I can inspect the O-ring myself, assuming it is included in the box, I hope it is, before we install this used one. And then of course, when we start the car, we'll visually inspect to make sure that no fuel is seeping out of the connection point. Hope you guys like my box cutter. It's a ruined flathead screwdriver. Actually broke this off while fixing the Q7, so now it just opens boxes for the most part. I purchased this from TAE. We got a lot of used GT-R stuff from TAE, including our hood. So it's really cool to have them only down the road. This stuff was overnighted and it was just generic shipping. I didn't pay anything extra for expedited overnight or anything. So here's our OEM fuel rail assembly, and it looks like it does come with the hose that we need. And that would be this guy right here. You can see we're wondering if it connects directly to the fuel rail assembly. And then the other side of it, that connects to, our leak point actually. And you can see in there, we've got an orange collar and then a green O-ring underneath that. It looks in pretty good shape. What I'm gonna do is dab it with just a touch of oil so that when it slides onto our factory fuel line, that we don't have any snags or any tears, which I imagine is what happened the first time around when we reinstalled this. We're gonna first remove these 10mm bolts. Carefully pull this out. I believe there's an O-ring in here as well. So we don't want to tear this or we'll have the same problem just somewhere else in the fueling system. And there we are. Let's check it out. You can see that O-ring that wraps around the neck of that connection point. And overall, I mean, it's a bit dirty. It's a used part, obviously. So we're gonna clean it up a tad. We'll cut this tape back a bit. Mine and our car is actually peeling as well, so not a huge deal. And then we'll get to the install. And for this, we'll first need to clear any pressurized fuel in our lines. Now, you could pull the fuel pump fuse, but in this car, it's in a tight space and a bit of a hassle. Yeah, you can see it's not coming out very nicely. And I honestly can't believe I'm saying this, but it's actually so much easier to just remove the rear seats via a single clip and disconnect the harness for the pumps themselves. All it takes is a flathead screwdriver or even the side of a coin and a bit of prying. Working on a car like this is just so easy in so many ways. Now comes the cringy part. So with this fuel pump's disconnected from power, when we attempt to start the car, what fuel is in the lines might make the car start, but it should quickly die. And then if we try to start it again after that, it'll just keep trying to turn over with no success. Let's see if that happens here. So now that the lines are mostly depressurized, we can more or less safely disconnect them. Now we're gonna have some fuel spray out inevitably, but it shouldn't be anywhere near as much as if the lines were pressurized. One other thing we should do before we get started is disconnect the battery, like so. We definitely don't want anything sparking with raw fuel around. Here comes the part where I awkwardly climb the top of the engine and reach for tucked away fuel hoses along the upper rear. Okay, so maybe working on these cars isn't quite as easy in some respects. And to be honest, pulling the intake manifold would have given much more access, but it requires disconnecting the charge pipes, some vacuum lines, and other goodies. Now, once the hose was loosened on the back end, I began wiggling it loose from up front where it mates to the fuel line that runs to the tank. The fuel pumps we disconnected under the rear seats pressurize this gas and force it upward through this long metal tube for combustion. The orange locking clip had to come off as well, but it fell far down into the abyss. So I kid you not, the front right wheel had to come off in order to reach it. I won't say how much time this added to the process, but it starts with a 1 and ends with an hour.
hey, I'm still a rookie. Since a lot of the plastic coating around the fuel line was peeling from the spilled gasoline, I decided to peel it back even further to where I could get a nice clean edge to work from, and then eventually cover with special tape. The plastic had swollen, especially around the ridge where the clip and hose are supposed to wrap around for a proper seal, and I didn't want to risk any of this getting in the way later. So you can see I'm more or less left with bare metal at this point, and I wiped away and lightly sanded any small excess bumps in the mating surface. Then it was time to prep the replacement hose and O-rings, both of which were lubed with a small amount of motor oil prior to insertion. Ideally, I'd use something a little more specialized than motor oil, but this has always worked for me, and as long as you're not applying a ton of it, it shouldn't hurt anything in the long run. This hose is very visible from inside the engine bay, by the way, so I touched it up a bit, rewrapped in places with electrical tape, and then dropped it back into its original home, ensuring it was bolted smoothly on the fuel rail side and snug once more with that orange plastic clip, that pesky little thing, and new O-ring on the line side.
All right, and here we go. So for all the marbles, fuel pumps reconnected, battery reconnected. We've triple checked the lines, everything looks good. The regulator, whatever that is at the other end of the fuel line, is seated and super tight with those two 10mm bolts. I think it's time we start this up. Now it's gonna start a little slow, a little sluggish, because it needs to build fuel pressure again, but I expect it will start. And when it does, we'll hop to the front and make sure that it's not seeping fuel anymore. But just in case, I'll have this on standby. I'll say so far so good. I don't see it seeping there. I'm really just looking for a fuel smell. That's typically the obvious sign. If you smell fuel, like a strong gas smell coming from your engine bay, bad sign, turn the car off. So far, everything is looking good, as well as behind the engine bay. I don't think you guys can hear a word I'm saying. And with the car off again, I'm just looking for a fuel smell. And it is non-existent. So much better than where we started. That is such a relief. Yeah. Everything around here smells good. I think the car is ready for the road again. Just quickly throw this vanity cover back on. I love the way this engine looks with this installed. And we'll tighten it down with our titanium bolts. Now, since I had to remove a wheel temporarily, I'm gonna run through every single lug just for a sanity check and make sure that they're torqued to spec. On a car like this, I don't wanna mess around. Nissan recommends, I think it's 97 pound-feet for OEM wheels. Now, we do have H&R spacers to give it a more flush fit, but I'm gonna stick with around 100 foot-pounds. I think that's a safe bet. I wanna show off my new DeWalt digital torque wrench. This thing is awesome. It's about 200 bucks on Amazon. It's a 1/2 inch, and since it's digital, you can set it to either pound-feet or Newton meters, and it will beep at you when you know you're close or on the money, which is pretty cool. So I want an excuse to try it on these wheels. Boom. This is one of the best investments I ever made. Man, this thing is awesome. I have a link to it below if you are interested. Now it's time for the fun part, driving the car. Also, real quick, while we're here, if you recall at the end of our last GT-R rebuild video, we had a problem with the gap between the bumper and the hood. You can see we got that sorted, and turns out I actually could use shims. I used a ton of them underneath the bumper side to lift it up, and then still secured it with some bolts, as well as some plastic little retaining clips as well. And you can see that everything for the most part looks pretty good. Now again, this isn't an OEM panel, so it's not gonna be perfect, but I'd say this is pretty darn good, especially compared to where we once were. Same on this side. The gaps look pretty dang sweet. And check this out. From the side, that's where you really get the idea of how close this is now. So from far away, it looks pretty darn awesome. And from up close, it's not perfect, but it's close enough for me. This just doesn't get old. Gosh, I love this car. And then whenever you want, you get to do this. I am going to get in so much trouble with this thing.
There really isn't much about this car that I don't like. I mean, it is a little clunky. Yeah, the drivetrain is not the most refined, but the engine is just glorious. The car looks fantastic. Yes, even after a severe crash. And you know, most of the issues that we've had so far have been very minor. I mean, considering the fact that I had my grimy hands on pretty much all of it, the fact that it has been as reliable as it has, given that I've put north of 1,000 miles on it by this point, is just phenomenal. I am so ecstatic that this car runs and drives so well.
Quick sanity check, and all still looks very good. Everything smells good as well, which again is the most important thing to me.
Now, I'm not sure if you can hear this, this just popped up, but there is a slight rattle coming from inside the driver door card. I think that's the cable for the door handle. Maybe it popped out of its little collar, and so it's kind of flapping around in there, you know, metal on metal. Again, it's a very small thing, a very easy fix. Nissan makes it so easy to pull these door cards off. It's just like 3 or 4 screws and then a bunch of clips you just have to pry off. A lot easier to work on than the Audis we've rebuilt. And that's, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, little things here and there. They'll always pop up with a car like this, given what it's been through, but that is a worthy trade-off for this kind of driving experience. I mean, just listen. Oh, so good. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't really know what the future holds for this car. As much as I would love to keep it, if money wasn't an issue, money kind of is an issue. There's a lot of money tied up in this car. And I know myself. I know that if somebody approached me and gave me a figure that was at least what I put into it, then I would probably let it go. And the only reason I would do that is because I want to do this again. Maybe not with another GT-R, but with other cars. Speaking of, boy, do I have an awesome car to rebuild next. You'll find out in a few videos.
I absolutely love the fact that this car is ready to rip your head off at a moment's notice. Oh, you want me to throw you back into your seat? You want me to make you feel like you're on a roller coaster? No problem, just push the pedal a little bit. It can be so raw, so visceral when you want it to be, but it's also a highway cruiser. I've taken this thing up and down freeways, traffic, no traffic. It's an enjoyable car through and through. I am so happy that we happened to find this on Copart, and I'm even happier that we've been able to rebuild it to the state that it's in. Thanks to the intercooler, the larger injectors, the downpipes, and several other smaller modifications, this car is making north of 600 pound-feet of torque. That's on a Mustang dyno and about 560 horsepower. So, you know, scale that up accordingly. I know Mustang dynos aren't the most accurate. Of course, that's to the wheels, not to the crank, so numbers are even higher if you're talking about crank horsepower and torque, but I'm just absolutely floored by how fast this thing is, and it's actually fairly easy to work on as well. Thank you all so much for coming along for the ride. I apologize for some of the weird, quirky camera angles. Doing this myself, you know, you kind of have to focus on 2 different things at the same time, and I definitely don't want to make any mistakes on the fueling side, because again, that's a potential fire hazard, and I am so thankful that that did not play out when we noticed the fuel issue to begin with. It could have been disaster for this car, possibly for myself or my kid, God forbid, so really got lucky there, and thankfully the fix was super simple. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and maybe sticking around for the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for building with me.